part of that process, several African American citizens are given the opportunity to gain power and influence as the South seeks to reunify with the Union. In 1870, Jonathan Jasper Wright becomes the very first African American in the history of South Carolina to be appointed to our state's Supreme Court. He served on that court until 1877. Also in 1870, South Carolina's Joseph Rainey, a freed slave, becomes the very first African American in our nation's history to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. Congressman Rainey will be followed to Washington by several other African Americans, including 7 more from South Carolina. But in 1877, Reconstruction ended. But with that, the old guard resumed its former positions of power and influence, and the gains made by African Americans eroded. The Ku Klux Klan and several other entities, sometimes known as red shirts or rifle clubs, continued to terrorize African American citizens throughout our state. Immediately following the Civil War, the South Carolina legislature enacted the Black Codes, a series of laws intended to repress the rights of African Americans. Those laws continued to be modified over the years into what we ultimately came to know as Jim Crow laws. In 1877, former Confederate General Wade Hampton was elected governor of South Carolina. He actually raised funds to defend white citizens in court who were accused of attacking black citizens. Ben Tillman was named governor of our state in 1890, and he openly advocated for the persecution of and lynching of African American citizens. African Americans continued to suffer under Jim Crow and many other forms of discrimination in our state into the 1960s. Spartanburg in the 1960s was home to several important individuals in the civil rights movement and beyond. The South Carolina Ku Klux Klan was led by Robert Scoggin, a Spartanburg resident and mill worker from 1962 until 1969. Also in the 1960s, Matthew J. Perry worked as Spartanburg's only African American attorney in his office across the street from Spartanburg's Carver High School. Although he was forced to wait in the balcony of the courthouse before he could argue his case along with all other African American citizens, Mr. Perry successfully fought cases to integrate Clemson University and the University of South Carolina in 1963. Mr. Perry also won several other cases throughout our state to integrate many other institutions, including restaurants, beaches, golf clubs, and parks. At that same time, a young social studies teacher at Carver High School, James Clyburn, spent many days after work in Mr. Perry's office discussing the social issues and climate of the day. In 1964, law firm integrated when Carver High School alumnus Albert Gray enrolled at the college. In 1965, the Jim Crow laws finally were abolished. In 1979, Matthew J. Perry became the first African American from South Carolina to be appointed to the Federal District Court. The federal courthouse in Columbia is named after him today. In 1985, over 100 years since South Carolina last had an African American on our state's highest court, Ernest A. Finney Jr., a prominent civil rights attorney who fought numerous cases, including the defense of the Friendship Nights efforts to integrate a lunch counter at the Stories in Rock Hill, was appointed as an Associate Justice of our state Supreme Court. 9 years later, in 1994, Justice Finney became the very first African American in the history of South Carolina to be named Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court. He would serve in that role until his retirement in 2000. The young social studies teacher from Carver High School, James Clyburn, ultimately became the first African American in South Carolina to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in over 100 years, when he was elected in 1998. He still serves in that role today. In 2007, Donald W. Beatty, a Spartanburg native and resident, became just the third African American to be appointed to a seat on our state Supreme Court. On May 25th, 2016, 2 days from right now, Justice Beatty should become only the second African American ever to be elected as Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court. Clearly, tremendous progress has been made. We have great cause to celebrate all of these achievements, but we cannot afford to rest on our laurels or assume that suddenly all is now well. We have seen similar gains as these before, and neither those examples nor other examples, including the election of South Carolina's first ever African American United States Senator, Tim Scott, in 2014, nor even the election of our nation's first African American president, Barack Obama, in 2008, has or even can hope to solve the systemic prejudicial issues that are inherent in our society. We have seen gains like these before in the years surrounding Reconstruction in the late 1800s. Those who forget our history are doomed to repeat it. And we must not forget that gains such as these, that were made in the years following the Civil War, were quickly erased when society's pendulum swung back in the other direction. It is up to today's generations and the generations to come to continue to fight to halt any regression of the gains made by African American citizens and to continue the fight for equality and justice for people of all races and all sexes and all creeds. The path forward will not be easy or quick, but we can do it together.
Is there any justice of the peace up there? Have you any squires?
I know a squire named Blackwood.
Well, you could have come here and made complaint.
I was afraid
Afraid of what?
of the Ku Klux,
What Ku Klux?
of the Martins.
But are you not afraid of them now?
I am. I'm afraid to go back home.
Are you going home?
I don't know whether I should ever go back or not.
You do not look very much frightened.
I am. I tremble, sir.
You will not go back home.
Not unless I see I have peace.
Or have you your children with you?
No, sir. One
Where is the other?
with my sister
Where?
at home.
You were not afraid to leave your little daughter at home?
I am. But all could be at home at once.
Does not the whole neighborhood know you're down here as witness?
I do not know that they do. When I came home, it was night, and the people told us to come up here. Be up here Friday, dinner time.
Then people must have known you were come here.
The people told us to come.
What people?
People from town, I don't know what you call
Oh,
them.
what do you call them?
We call them Yankees.
Were they soldiers?
Yes, sir,
Well, how many?
26.
Did the whole neighborhood know that 26 soldiers were there?
Yes, sir.
You've come down here to be witness, and 26 soldiers told you to come,
Yes, sir.
and full military array in the neighborhood, so that all of the people must have known.
I do not know what they know.
Well, the Martins must have known it.
I don't know.
You were not afraid to leave your little daughter?
I'm afraid. But I had to come here. There were cows, so somebody had to be there.
Which was the dearest to you, your daughter or the cow?
My daughter. But Charlie, he wouldn't fetch us both at once.
Who's Charlie?
My husband.
Be careful. Simple words familiar to my mouth, words that have been a part of my